The day humanity realized they weren't alone in the universe came not with a whisper, but with a thunderous display of power that shook the very foundations of civilization. The collective Dominion's warships appeared simultaneously above every major city on Earth, their massive hulls blocking out the sun and casting millions into premature darkness. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Command Center, her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she watched the alien vessels hover above Singapore. 25 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. The ships above weren't just advanced. They were impossibly massive, each one larger than any human-made structure in history. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission across all frequencies," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension visible in his shoulders. "They're broadcasting in every known human language simultaneously." The message that followed was precise, clinical, and terrifying in its simplicity. "People of Earth, we are the collective Dominion, rulers of 5,000 star systems and guardians of galactic order. Your species has been observed and found lacking in the qualities necessary for independent existence. Submit to our rule, and we will guide your evolution. Resist, and we will demonstrate why no species has ever successfully defied the Dominion." In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and every other capital, leaders scrambled to formulate a response. The Dominion had given Earth 48 hours to surrender formally. Their technological superiority was obvious. Sensors indicated energy readings that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. But they had made one critical mistake. They had assumed humanity's technological inferiority meant they would behave rationally and submit. Admiral Chen smiled as she watched the panic unfold on global news networks. She had spent the last decade running simulations of first contact scenarios, and while this wasn't the peaceful meeting humanity had hoped for, they weren't completely unprepared. "Get me a secure line to all UED facilities," she ordered, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had earned her the nickname Steel Chen among her subordinates. "And contact Dr. Patil at the Quantum Defense Initiative. Tell her it's time to test her theory about their shield harmonics." The Dominion ships might be powerful, but they operated on principles that could be understood and, potentially, exploited. Human scientists had already begun analyzing the energy signatures, looking for patterns and weaknesses. While politicians debated and the public feared, humanity's greatest minds were doing what they did best, solving seemingly impossible problems. In her private lab in Geneva, Dr. Aisha Patel worked feverishly with her team, analyzing the data streaming in from sensors worldwide. The Dominion's technology was advanced, but it wasn't magic. Every system, no matter how sophisticated, had rules it had to follow. And rules could be broken, or better yet, bent to humanity's advantage. "Their shield frequencies," she muttered, eyes fixed on the scrolling data. "They're not random. There's a pattern here, something almost musical." Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, mapping out the complex mathematical relationships between the energy pulses that protected the alien ships. Meanwhile, in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, the crew of the experimental submarine U.S. Prometheus watched their sensors with growing excitement. Commander James Walker had noticed something unusual. The Dominion ships were causing subtle but measurable changes in Earth's magnetic field, changes that seemed to intensify whenever they moved or powered up their weapons. "They're not as invulnerable as they want us to think," he reported to Admiral Chen. "Their ships are generating some kind of artificial gravity field, but it's interfering with Earth's natural magnetic field. If we can disrupt that interference..." The pieces were starting to come together. Humanity might be outgunned, but they had something the Dominion didn't expect: the ability to analyze, adapt, and innovate at an unprecedented speed. While the aliens waited for Earth's surrender, humanity was already preparing its response. As the deadline approached, Admiral Chen called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Defense Council. Representatives from every major military and scientific institution gathered virtually, their faces grim but determined. "The Dominion expects us to look at their ships," see their power, and give up. Chen began, her voice steady. They expect us to behave logically, to recognize our technological inferiority and submit. But they don't understand humanity. We don't submit just because the odds are against us. We don't give up just because something seems impossible. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. We have 48 hours before they expect our surrender. I say we use that time to show them exactly why they shouldn't underestimate Earth. Dr. Patel has discovered a weakness in their shield systems, and Commander Walker has found a way to disrupt their ship's stability. We might not have their technology, but we have something they don't: the ability to think creatively and adapt quickly. The council chamber erupted in discussion as plans were formed and resources allocated. The Dominion had made their show of force, expecting submission. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what it needed: a challenge to overcome, a problem to solve, and a reason to unite. As the first day of the deadline drew to a close, Admiral Chen looked again at the massive ships above Singapore. The Dominion thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would bow to superior force. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology, but in their stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds. As the second day of the Dominion's ultimatum dawned, Dr. Aisha Patel's laboratory had transformed into a hub of frenetic activity. Screens displayed complex waveform analyses of the alien shields, while quantum computers processed massive amounts of data gathered from monitoring stations worldwide. Something about the Dominion's technology wasn't adding up, and she was determined to find out what it was. "Look at this," she called out to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Wong, pointing to a peculiar pattern in the energy readings. "Their shields operate on a quantum frequency that's almost perfectly aligned with our experimental quantum communication network. It's as if they're using a standardized system across their entire empire." Marcus leaned in, his eyes widening as he processed the implications. "They've optimized their technology for efficiency across thousands of worlds, but that standardization—" He trailed off, a smile slowly spreading across his face. "That makes them predictable." Beneath the Pacific Ocean, Commander Walker's discovery about the magnetic field distortions had led to an even more significant breakthrough. His crew had noticed that the Dominion ship's artificial gravity systems created distinct ripples in Earth's magnetosphere, ripples that intensified whenever the ships adjusted their position or powered up their weapons. "It's like they never considered that a planetary magnetic field could interfere with their systems," Walker reported to Admiral Chen. "They've conquered thousands of worlds, but how many of those worlds had magnetic fields as strong and dynamic as Earth's?" In the UED Command Center, Admiral Chen was beginning to see a pattern emerge. The Dominion's technological superiority was real, but it came with unexpected limitations. Their empire's vast size had forced them to standardize their technology, making it more efficient but less adaptable. They had optimized their systems for worlds they had already conquered, never expecting to encounter a planet whose natural properties could disrupt their carefully calibrated equipment. "They think we're primitive because we haven't mastered interstellar travel," Chen mused, watching the latest data stream in. "But they've forgotten something crucial. Evolution doesn't just reward the most advanced, it rewards those who can adapt." Meanwhile, in laboratories and research facilities around the world, human scientists were making remarkable progress in understanding the Dominion's technology. The alien standardized systems, while incredibly advanced, followed patterns that could be analyzed and predicted. Every hour brought new insights, new possibilities, and new ways to exploit the unexpected weaknesses in their seemingly impenetrable defenses. Dr. Patel's team had managed to create a basic model of the Dominion's shield harmonics. The aliens used a quantum field matrix that was incredibly efficient but operated on fixed frequencies. "It's beautiful in its complexity," she explained during an emergency briefing. "But it's also rigid. They sacrificed adaptability for power and efficiency." The implications were staggering. While the Dominion shields could withstand enormous amounts of conventional force, They were vulnerable to precisely targeted quantum interference. Earth's experimental quantum communication network, originally designed for secure communications, could potentially be modified to disrupt their entire defensive system. Commander Walker's submarine team had made equally important discoveries. The Dominion's gravity manipulation technology, while incredibly advanced, created predictable patterns of electromagnetic disturbance. These disturbances could be detected, mapped, and potentially counteracted using Earth's own magnetic field as a weapon. Their technology is like a perfect machine, Walker explained, but perfect machines don't handle unexpected variables well. Earth's magnetic field is chaotic, dynamic, and constantly changing. Their systems aren't designed to handle that kind of natural variability. As the second day progressed, humanity's greatest minds worked tirelessly, combining their discoveries into a coherent defense strategy. The Dominion had expected to find a primitive species cowering before their superior technology. Instead, they had found a civilization that thrived on solving impossible problems. In her office, Admiral Chen received update after update from research teams around the world. Each report confirmed what she had begun to suspect. The Dominion's greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. Their technological superiority had made them inflexible, unable to adapt quickly to unexpected challenges. They've forgotten what it's like to be the underdog, she told her staff during a strategy session. They've forgotten that necessity breeds innovation, that pressure creates diamonds. They think we'll look at their advanced technology and give up. Instead, we're doing what humans do best, finding ways to turn their strengths against them. As the deadline for Earth's surrender drew closer, a plan began to take shape. It wasn't a plan based on matching the Dominion's firepower. That would have been impossible. Instead, it was a plan that relied on humanity's greatest advantages: creativity, adaptability, and the ability to find unexpected solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. The Dominion had given Earth 48 hours, expecting submission. What they got instead was a masterclass in human ingenuity. As the sun set on the second day, Admiral Chen looked at the alien ships still hovering above Earth's cities. She knew that tomorrow would change everything, not just for Earth, but for the entire Dominion. They were about to learn that true strength wasn't measured by technological advancement alone, but by the ability to adapt and overcome. The final hours before the Dominion's deadline witnessed something unprecedented in human history: the complete dissolution of international borders in the face of a common threat. In an emergency session of the United Nations, representatives from every nation voted unanimously to establish a unified Earth defense coalition. "We stand together, or we fall together," declared the UN Secretary-General, her words echoing across global broadcasts. "Our differences mean nothing in the face of extinction. Today we are not citizens of individual nations, we are citizens of Earth." The transformation was remarkable. Countries that had been historical enemies now shared military resources and scientific data without hesitation. China's quantum computing facilities worked in perfect synchronization with American defense systems. Russian submarine commanders coordinated with British naval forces. Iranian scientists collaborated with Israeli researchers. In the UED Command Center, Admiral Chen watched as the pieces of humanity's response came together. Dr. Patel's quantum interference system was being integrated into military installations worldwide, while Commander Walker's magnetic field manipulation technology was being deployed through a network of submarines strategically positioned around the globe. "The Dominion thinks they're dealing with a fragmented species," Chen observed to her international staff. "They expect us to fight among ourselves, to fracture under pressure. Instead, we're showing them something they've never seen before: a planet united in purpose." The plan they had developed was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy by conventional military standards. But conventional military thinking meant nothing when facing an enemy with such overwhelming technological superiority. Instead, they would use the Dominion's own standardization against them. Dr. Patel's team had completed their analysis of the alien shield harmonics. Their entire defense network operates on the same basic principles: she explained during the final briefing. If we can disrupt one ship's shields, we can disrupt them all. They never considered that someone might turn their own quantum field matrix against them. Commander Walker's submarine fleet had mapped the electromagnetic disturbances caused by the Dominion's gravity manipulation systems. Earth's magnetic field is like a web, he reported. When their ships move through it, they create ripples we can track and predict. More importantly, we can amplify those ripples, turning our planet's natural defenses into a weapon. The strategy was unprecedented, using Earth itself as part of humanity's defense system. The planet's magnetic field would be transformed into a vast trap, while the quantum interference network would target the standardized weaknesses in the Dominion's shields. But it would only work if every part of the system activated simultaneously, requiring perfect coordination between military forces and scientific installations around the globe. As the deadline approached, humanity's response took its final form. Military forces were positioned, scientists stood ready at their stations, and civilians watched with bated breath. The plan didn't just require technological innovation. It required something the Dominion had never encountered before. A species willing to set aside all internal conflicts to face an external threat as one unified force. In her command center, Admiral Chen received the final confirmations. Every nation was in position. Every system was ready. The quantum interference network was primed. The submarine fleet was in place, and Earth's population waited in tense anticipation. They gave us 48 hours to submit. Chen addressed her global command staff. They expected us to spend that time coming to terms with our defeat. Instead, we've done something unprecedented. We've united as one species, one planet, one people. The Dominion thinks they're superior because they've conquered thousands of worlds. But they've never encountered a world like Earth, and they've never met a species like humanity. The deadline was approaching. Soon, the Dominion would expect Earth's formal surrender. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered in their thousands of years of conquest. A planet that refused to be conquered, a species that grew stronger under pressure, and a civilization that had turned unity itself into a weapon. As the final minutes ticked away, Admiral Chen looked at the faces of her international staff. Chinese, American, Russian, Nigerian, Brazilian, all working as one team. The Dominion had made a crucial mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare, expecting fear to drive them apart. Instead, they had created something unprecedented in human history. True global unity. The deadline arrived. Around the world, humans held their breath, waiting for the signal to begin. The Dominion ships hung in the sky, their massive forms casting shadows over Earth's cities, expecting submission. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their strategies. It was their ability to stand together in the face of impossible odds. The moment the deadline passed, the Dominion ships began powering up their weapon systems. They had expected Earth's surrender. Instead, they were met with silence. In the command centers around the world, humanity held its breath, waiting for the precise moment to launch their counterattack. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the tension. All stations, commence Operation Thunderbolt. Beneath the oceans, Commander Walker's network of submarines activated their electromagnetic pulse generators simultaneously. The pulses weren't aimed at the Dominion ships directly. Instead, they resonated with Earth's magnetic field, amplifying its natural fluctuations. The effect was subtle at first, barely noticeable to the alien vessel's sensors. In her laboratory, Dr. Patel initiated the quantum interference network. Thousands of quantum transmitters around the globe began broadcasting on frequencies that perfectly matched the harmonics of the Dominion's shield systems. Again, the effect was minimal at first, just enough to create a slight disruption in their standardized defense grid. "They're noticing the anomalies," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez, monitoring the Dominion's communications, "but they're dismissing them as atmospheric interference. They still don't realize what we're doing." That was exactly what humanity had counted on. The Dominion's technological superiority had bred a fatal arrogance. They couldn't conceive that a primitive species could understand their systems well enough to exploit them, let alone coordinate a planet-wide response. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Dominion ships tried to reposition themselves. The amplified magnetic field distortions interfered with their gravity manipulation systems, causing slight but noticeable instabilities in their formation. At the same time, the quantum interference was slowly but steadily creating cascading disruptions in their shield harmonics. Their standardized systems are working against them, Dr. Puddle reported, watching the data stream in. Each ship is trying to compensate for the interference using the same protocols, which only amplifies the disruption across their entire network. The Dominion responded with a show of force, firing warning shots at major cities, but even this played into humanity's hands. The energy discharge from their weapons created new distortions in the magnetic field, which Walker's submarine network immediately amplified and redirected back at the alien fleet. "They're starting to realize something's wrong," Commander Walker reported. "Their ships are having trouble maintaining stable positions. The magnetic interference is forcing their gravity systems to work harder, which is only making the disruption worse." In orbit, the Dominion fleet's perfect formation began to waver. Their ships, designed to work in perfect synchronization, were now fighting against Earth's natural defenses and their own standardized responses. Each attempt to compensate for the interference only created new vulnerabilities for humanity to exploit. Admiral Chen watched as the coordinated attack unfolded. "This is what they never understood about us," she said to her staff. "We don't just adapt to overcome our weaknesses, we turn them into strengths." They thought Earth's magnetic field was a primitive feature of an underdeveloped world. We turned it into a weapon. The Dominion's response was predictable. They attempted to increase power to their shields and gravity systems, but this only accelerated the cascade effect. The quantum interference network, now operating at full capacity, created feedback loops in their shield harmonics. Ships that had been merely unstable began experiencing systematic failures. Their entire fleet operates on the same principles, Dr. Puddle explained during an emergency broadcast. They standardized everything for efficiency, but that means they all share the same vulnerabilities. We're not just fighting individual ships, we're undermining their entire operational framework. The first Dominion ship fell from formation, its gravity systems completely overwhelmed by the magnetic distortions. Others quickly followed, their perfectly synchronized defense network unraveling, as Earth's coordinated attack exploited every weakness in their standardized systems. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the Dominion ships began firing their main weapons. But in doing so, they only added more energy to the system humanity had created. Each blast created new magnetic distortions for the submarine network to amplify, while the energy discharge further destabilized their already compromised shield harmonics. Admiral Chen watched as the mighty Dominion fleet, which had arrived with such overwhelming confidence, began to break apart. Ships that had been designed to operate as part of a perfect whole were now fighting against each other's automated responses, creating a cascade of failures that spread through their entire formation. "Send the message," she ordered. The words that broadcast from every human communication system were simple but powerful. "This is humanity's response to your ultimatum. We will not submit. We will not surrender. And we are not as primitive as you thought." The Dominion's perfect formation had devolved into chaos. Their standardized systems, once their greatest strength, had become their greatest weakness. They had never faced a species that could turn their own technology against them so effectively. More importantly, they had never encountered a civilization that could unite so completely in the face of overwhelming odds. The Dominion's fleet hung in Earth's atmosphere, their once perfect formation now scattered and unstable. Their mighty ships, designed to operate as parts of an invincible whole, were now fighting against the very standardization that had made them powerful. But the collective Dominion had not conquered 5,000 worlds by accepting defeat easily. From the flagship of the Dominion fleet, A new transmission cut through Earth's communications networks. The voice was different now. Gone was the cold confidence, replaced by barely contained fury. You dare to challenge us? We have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. This defiance will be your last act as a species. In the UED command center, Admiral Chen allowed herself a small smile. They still don't understand, she said to her staff. They think this is about technology. They don't realize it's about adaptation, about turning disadvantages into strengths. The Dominion launched their full assault. Energy weapons capable of devastating entire cities fired simultaneously, a display of power meant to end humanity's resistance once and for all. But Earth was ready. Commander Walker's submarine network had been recalibrated, waiting for exactly this moment. Now, Walker ordered. The electromagnetic pulse generators fired at precisely calculated intervals, using the energy from the Dominion's own weapons to create a massive magnetic surge. The alien ships, already struggling with Earth's natural magnetic field, were caught in a web of their own making. Dr. Patel's quantum interference network shifted to its final phase. Their weapons discharge created exactly the energy signature we needed, she reported. Their shield harmonics are completely exposed, initiating total spectrum disruption. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Dominion's standardized shield systems, designed to be perfectly efficient, became perfectly vulnerable. The quantum interference cascaded through their entire fleet, turning their own defensive network against them. Ships that had seemed invincible began losing power, their systems overloading as they tried to compensate for failures they had never been designed to handle. This is impossible. The Dominion's transmission was filled with disbelief. You are primitives. You cannot comprehend our technology, let alone defeat it. Admiral Chen's response was broadcast across all frequencies. You're right. We don't have your technology. But we have something you lost long ago. The ability to adapt, to innovate, to find strength in our apparent weaknesses. You gave us 48 hours to submit. We used that time to study, to learn, and to turn your own standardization against you. The Dominion's mighty fleet was in complete disarray. Ships that had arrived as conquerors were now struggling to maintain basic functions. Their gravity systems, fighting against Earth's amplified magnetic field, were failing. Their weapons, designed to work in perfect synchronization, were becoming dangerous to their own vessels as the quantum interference disrupted their targeting systems. In a final, desperate attempt to regain control, the Dominion's flagship attempted to coordinate a retreat, but even this proved impossible. Their standardized navigation systems, corrupted by the quantum interference, couldn't calculate safe trajectories through Earth's now weaponized magnetic field. Your empire spans 5,000 worlds. Admiral Chen transmitted to the failing fleet. But you forgot something crucial. True strength isn't in numbers or technology. It's in the ability to face impossible odds and find a way to win. Humanity doesn't submit. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. The Dominion's response came not in words, but in actions. One by one, their mighty ships powered down their weapons. The standardized systems that had made them invincible had become their greatest vulnerability, and they had no choice but to acknowledge defeat. A new transmission came from the Dominion flagship, this time in a tone that no human had heard before, one of respect. In 5,000 years of conquest, we have never encountered a species like yours. You turned our strength against us. You united your entire world against us. Perhaps we were wrong about humanity's potential. Around the world, humans emerged from their shelters to watch as the mighty Dominion fleet retreated. They had arrived as conquerors, expecting to find a primitive species ready for subjugation. Instead, they had found humanity, adaptable, innovative, and unwilling to submit. In the UED command center, Admiral Chen addressed her global staff one final time. Today, we did more than defend Earth. We showed the galaxy something new. That true advancement isn't measured by technology alone, but by the ability to unite, adapt, and overcome. The Dominion thought they were testing our submission. Instead, they tested our resolve and found it stronger than any technology. As the last Dominion ship disappeared from Earth's skies, humanity had changed forever. They were no longer alone in the universe, no longer confined to their own world. More importantly, they had proven something to themselves and to the galaxy, that the human spirit, when united in purpose, could overcome any obstacle, no matter how overwhelming it might seem. The day the collective dominion came to conquer Earth became the day humanity proved they were ready for the stars, not because of their technology, but because of something far more powerful, their unbreakable spirit and their ability to turn any challenge, no matter how impossible, into an opportunity for triumph.